Hi everyone, Lisa Gifford here, and welcome to December Sew and Show subscription box, and it's a good one, and I hope you absolutely love it as much as I have enjoyed making it and creating this project for you. So today we are showcasing the Martelli Snappy Drawstring Bag, and this is what you're going to be making with all the supplies that you've received in your box. And this is absolutely adorable. It has a snap on it here on the front, and on the back side we have a snap, and then it is a draw, and it's a full pocket. There's a full pocket in here, and it also has the drawstring bag in here. Now, when I was looking at this, we had a little difficulty coming up with a good name for it. Drawstring bag just didn't seem to work. Snappy Drawstring Bag had a great ring to it, but it also could be called like a bucket bag or a mini bucket bag. And as Margot suggested, she thought this is a great bingo bag. So this would be a good place to put your daubers and put your little snacks and all your little goodies in here. So my grandma would have absolutely loved it, and we're going to have it in two sizes for those of you who are subscribers to the Martelli subscription box. A little bit later you'll be able to purchase the large one. This is the big one right here, and this is the one my grandma would love. She would be all about this one, throwing all her daubers and all her goodies in here, her snacks in here. She had a little gnome that she took with her everywhere, and it was her little good luck charm. So this is the large one for the subscription box. This is a drawstring snappy bag, has the snaps in it, and I added a couple little pockets on the outside, so you could do whatever you want. Just added more snaps, more pockets here, and I actually put a pocket on the back. So you're going to be able to purchase that, and it's a nice size template. I have it somewhere. Yep, here's the template for the large one, but this is the one that you received in your box. So we're only having the two sizes. This is the one you received, and this is the one that you'll be able to purchase a little bit later, the drawstring snappy bag. So let's talk about what's in the box. So in the box, you will receive the fabric to be able to make one of these three here. So I got three different versions. The one we're going to be making today is this one right here. This fabric line is from Free Spirit, and I something about birds in a garden. I can't remember if I could find one of the little things to tell us what it was, but it's like a birds in a garden, and all of the fabrics match. I think I have a couple of them that are Andover, but I've got all the fabrics coordinate matching. So here's your first one. So you're going to get a fat quarter for the outer fabric. You're going to have a fat quarter for the lining for the main drawstring bag, and then you're going to have 1/8 of a yard for the exterior of your pocket and 1/8 of a yard for the interior of your pocket. So you're going to have all of that, and I actually have, here are the other two colorways. I have them all right here, so I'm going to set these aside. So I'm going to show you all the fabrics that you receive. Those of you will get this set of 4 here. This is the one we're going to be doing today. Again, it's a half of a yard, of 1/8 of a yard, a half of 1/8 of a yard. So it's 9 by 21, 22 inches. So you're going to have 2 of these. This is your pocket, and then you're going to have a fat quarter, 18 by 22. For your 2 larger pieces. Here is the second colorway. We've got cardinals, this fabric here. This is your lining for the large bag drawstring, and then these 2 fabrics for your for the pocket. And then our last colorway, and I think this one's probably one of my favorites. I love this one with the bluebirds on here and the big roses. So these are the 2 fabrics for the drawstring bag. And these are the 2 fabrics for the pocket, right here. Let's see it right here, Bird Garden by Free Spirit. So those are the 4 fabrics that you have. You'll get one of those 3 choices of the 4 fabrics. Other things that you're going to need, everybody will get, is right here. Of course, you're going to have your template, and I want you to notate there's a pocket line drawn on here, so it's an all-in-one template with the cut lines right here. You're going to get a 30-inch piece of cotton strapping. You'll be cutting this in half. You're going to get 1.5 yards of 2mm nylon cord. I think a lot of people call this the mandala cord, but it is 2mm nylon cord. So you'll get a 1.5 yards of this. You'll be cutting this in half for the drawstring. You're going to get 2 wooden beads. They were a part, I think they just added a nice little touch to add to your little drawstring bag. You're also going to get 2 sets of magnetic snaps with the prongs. So you'll have the male and the female pieces, and then you'll have the 4 little metal washer placement pieces. You're also going to receive a 1 by 4 inch piece of heavyweight non-fusible. So it's a sew-in stabilizer, really heavyweight. You're going to cut this into 1 inch squares. So cut it in half, then cut it in half again, because you're going to need 4 of them. And then you're going to get some fusible fleece, lightweight, midweight. You're going to have some fusible fleece, and it's going to be about a 9 by 22 inch piece. And that's going to be to give the pocket a little bit of body. If you wanted to, you could add a little bit of sew-in stabilizer like SF101 if you wanted to add a little bit more body to the drawstring bag, but I didn't feel that it needed it, so we just have it on here. And I guess just right here I have the fusible fleece. Now on this large bag, just so that I let you know, I've used the fusible fleece on this one, the midweight or heavyweight fusible. I think it's midweight on here. But I think this would probably work a little bit better if I did like a fusible foam. I think the fusible foam would make it a little bit better. The reason why it's standing up so nice and pretty right now is because I got some stuffing in here just to hold it up. But it seemed like it was a little bit floppy, so if you wanted it to have more of that stable feel on the outside, I would probably use fusible foam on the larger one. All right, so then that is all the supplies that you're going to get that's in your kit. Again, you're going to get 2 fat quarters and 2 1/2 of a quarter yard for the pieces. So that's what you got for the fabric plus your fusible. And then again, the cord, the strapping, the heavyweight, the magnetic snaps, 2 of them, and then the wooden buttons. So you'll need all of those pieces. Now, some tools that I think they'll make this process very easy to do is you're going to need a seam ripper. You're going to find the seam ripper. It's going to be very nice when you're marking and cutting your fabric to put your prongs through. It works really easy to have a seam ripper on here. Some clips will be good to have. Of course, our Martelli rotary cutter. A marking tool. A pencil is what I used. A pen, but I think a pencil works really good. You're going to need maybe some scissors. Anything to pull your drawstring through. We have these, Martelli has these little, I can't remember the name, but we have this tool right here that easily grabs onto your cord, slides it through, or a safety pin. I've actually used a large safety pin too, also you attach it to your string to make your drawstring. Let's see, I found having a 1 inch ruler, because there's a couple places that we're going to be marking with the 1 inch. But that's pretty much everything that you're going to need to be able to get this project going. So the first thing, there's a lot of prep work that you have to do before you start putting the whole thing together. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start talking about the prep work. So the first thing I'm going to have you do is get all of your fabrics and get them ironed nice and flat. If you want to put a little bit of starch on there, go ahead and give them a little bit of starch. Just get them all nice and flat for you to get started. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to start getting all of our prep work going on making this bag today. All right, once you have all of your fabrics nice and flat, now in the instructions I talk about going ahead and cutting them in half. But I'm going to show you, if you didn't want to cut them in half, you wanted to cut both the pieces at the same time, I'm going to show you how to do that for the larger piece and then for this smaller piece. But the one that has the fleece, I recommend you cut that fabric in half, or go ahead and fuse your fusible all across. Go ahead and fuse the whole fusible all the way on it, and then you're going to cut it in half. So be sure to do that, because I find it's easier to cut this piece with your template when it's cut in half. The other ones you could cut them all at the same time. So let's go ahead and show you that. We're going to start with cutting the large drawstring part. So you're going to cut 2 of the two for the exterior and 2 for the lining of the drawstring part, and you'll cut 2 of the pocket exterior and 2 of the pocket lining. So here is the exterior piece that you're going to be cutting. Now if it has a little bit of a directional like this one does, you need to, I'm going to go ahead and get all of my little pieces out of the way. You're going to have to, after you get it pressed, pay attention to the directional, like this one here, because I want this birds to be up on the top of my bag. So I'm going to fold it in half. And I've got a selvage here, so I want to go ahead and get it to where I'm not folding it in half at the selvage. I'm folding it in half here to the selvage, and then I'm going to fold it again. Now I can set my template on here. So this right here on our template, it has a fold line. So you're going to cut out this whole thing all the way around, but not on the fold. So you're going to set this on the fold. I'm going to bring it down just a little bit. So I'll have a little piece right here that I could use for another project. And you're just going to line up right here this onto the fold. So you've got double fold here. I'm going to pull this back so you can see. It's folded, and then you're folding it again. So you got 4 layers right there. Lay this on here, and you're going to trim this here and across your cut line here and the bottom here, so where you're going to have a boxed corner here. So let's go ahead and get this trimmed. Carefully turn. Cutting into my cut line. And then the last one here. Now, if it doesn't cut completely, we'll trim that off in just a second. So keeping it folded. Don't lift it up yet. If you didn't cut all the way through, just go ahead and trim that off. But while it is still folded, I want you to go ahead and mark your centers. So what I do is I just put my blade on here, and I just do a little nip on what my centers. Now, to me, it's just a guide. It's going to help you line everything up, but you're also going to need to know where centers are on some of the different things that we're doing. So I'm just putting my little mark right here, and I've got my centers marked. And after I've cut it, I know that there's my center, and I've got my birds in the right orientation. So that's cutting the larger pieces. Now let me show you how to cut the smaller piece. Now this would be the pocket. Now noting that you've got a pocket line on your template, I'm going to grab this one right here. This is the lining of my pocket. So same thing, I'm going to double fold it. Now one of the things you need to do once you have it double folded, I need a very straight line right here. So after I have it folded, I'm lining it up on one of my lines here, and I'm going to make this straight because that is what you're going to be using to line up against this line that is on the template. So there's my straight edge right there. Now I'm going to take my template and I'm going to place this on top on that fold line here, but I am lining up the top of the fabric that I just trimmed to that line. So I'm looking at a couple things. I'm making sure I have the fold line right here. I'm making sure that this line, the top of my fabric is on that fold line. Once you have that in place, now you can go ahead and trim this around. And just like we did for the exterior piece, once you lift up your template, if you need to trim this away just a little bit, just pull it up and kind of trim it. But I am going to go into here now while it's still folded, and I'm going to mark my centers. I'm just taking a little bitty dot off of the top there so I know where my centers are. So I got that on this one. Now when you've done to do the larger one, same thing. Now for the other pocket piece, this is the one that I've got the fusible on. So I'm going to go ahead and get my edge straight first. Then I'm going to fold it in half, lining up that straight edge to the edge. And just like I did for the lining of the pocket, I'm looking for this to be on the fold, and this line, the edge of the fabric here, that straight edge that you just trimmed, is lining up with that line here. And then we're going to go ahead and just trim this one. And just like before, kind of got to get your pockets just to cut a little bit better, the little cutouts for the box bottom. And then while it's still folded, go ahead and mark your little centers on each one of those. So then you'll cut out 2 of these. So you'll have 2 of these, 2 of these, 2 of these, and then you'll have 2 of the lining. We're not going to cut that lining for the drawstring part. All right, so now here's our next prep work. We've got to do some work for this piece right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get our strap out. So this is your piece right here. This is your 30 inches. It should be right at 30 inches. Go ahead and fold it in half, because we're going to go ahead and get our strap onto the exterior of the pocket. We're going to get that sewed in, because it's going to go right here. So we're going to go ahead and get this part done. Then we're going to prep work for our magnets. We got a little bit of work on that one. So let's folding it in half. Go ahead and cut it in half, right there at that fold. Now you have 2 different ways that you could do your straps. You can go ahead and just leave them as I've done here, where I didn't fold them in half. So these are where I folded it in half and stitched it. So I'm going to show you how to do that, or you could just leave it just like this. So I'm going to show you how I did that, and it's super easy technique. So you're going to take your strap and you're going to mark your strap 3 inches on each end. So take your strap, lay it on your mat, and measure in 3 inches on each end, and kind of mark that with a pencil, because you're going to fold it, and that's where you're going to start. That's where you're going to stitch. You're going to stitch in between that right here. So to do that, you're just folding your piece in half, or if you kind of want to hide that, do something that doesn't leave a mark, but you're going to fold it in half. So if you want to, you can go ahead and put a clip there to kind of hold it. You could clip it all the way down if you feel you need to clip it all the way down. But that's where you're going to be starting and stopping to create your handle. So I'm going to put a couple clips down here, and we're just going to stitch it down. Now I just do a straight stitch all the way down. You could do a decorative stitch if you wanted, a zigzag stitch. I just do a straight stitch all the way down. So you're going to do this to both of them, and you want to be sure to get your measurements right and that you start and stop exact so that they'll both be identical for when you're making your piece. So this was what we're going to stitch. I'm going to take this to the machine, and I'm just going to stitch it down right here along this edge, all the way down, starting at one spot and stitching all the way down to the other side. I still have my machine set on the 1/4 inch setting, and I got my mark in such a way so I can see when I set down my foot that it's going to rest right there, and my needle's going to go right into where I have that line drawn. And I'm probably stitching about 1/8 of an inch from the folded edge, well, from the 2 raw edges on the fold. So I'm just running right here, so I'm going to do a couple stitches forward, and you could bring up your stitch and draw up your stitch so you don't have a little knot on the back side, and I should have done that, but I'm just going to take a couple stitches forward, couple stitches back, and we're going to go ahead and stitch this all the way down. Now you could match up this thread, but I'm using the thread that I've been using throughout this whole to make these so that you can kind of see it. But when I was first doing these, I matched the thread, or just use a white if you won't see it on this cream. Just keeping it folded and right there along that edge. Now I'm coming up right to where that other mark is. I don't want to go beyond because I want it to both be the same. To the line, and then a couple stitches back, And you're going to repeat that for both of your handles. All right. So once you have both of those done, now you're going to take this piece right here, the one that has the fusible on it, and that's, again, this is the exterior of the pocket, and you're going to center this on your mat, and I've got the line here dropping down. Right now I have it on my 15, so there's my center here and here. So what I'm doing is I am measuring over, I think I already have this one done, I am measuring over 1.5 inches on both sides of that line. So I'm going to show you on this one. Finding my center here, going all the way down, I'm going to go 1.5 inches from that center and mark it. 1.5 inches from the center and mark it. Now if you want, you could put like a little clip in there, just 1.5 inches over. This is again just a mark for you. Now on this one, I put a little divot in it right here, here and here. It's 1.5 inches over. So now you're going to take your strap and you're going to, with this double seam up like this, you're going to set it right there on the outside of that mark that you had just made. And I'm going to put a clip here, and then on the outside of that mark you just made, a clip here. And how I have this is where I've got my, it's laying flat across, but I've got my, where I stitched is up on top. So that when it's up on your bag, it's going to look like this when you've got your strap on your bag. Once I have it marked on here where I want it to be, then I'm just going to go back to the machine and we're going to baste this down right there like 1/8 of an inch from the edge. It's going to hold it in place for you. So get that stitched down. So I'm just doing 1/8 of an inch stitch just to hold it in place. Making sure it's nice and straight, not angled on you. Just stitching it down. Do that for both of them. So once you have that done, now we're going to set this aside because now we got to put the magnet into our lining piece. So you're going to have that set aside. So let's grab our lining. So our lining are these two pieces here, like I have right here, the two pieces that you've done. So you had marked your center. So you've got to mark now where the magnet is going to go onto this piece right here. So to mark this, you're going to mark 1 inch down, and this is where I found having my little ruler, is I just laid my ruler, my 1 inch ruler, and I just drew a little line. So you're going to mark 1 inch down from center. And then when you have this folded, you know where your center is, just kind of give it a finger press. And then I got my drew a little line right there. So there is my center 1 inch down. Now we're going to grab our magnets. So you're going to grab the male. You have a male and a female. The female is the heavy magnetic piece. The male is the non-magnetic piece. So you grab your male, you're going to need your metal washer, and you're going to need one of the little strips. So if you would have taken that 4-inch strip, you would have cut it into 4 pieces. You're going to take your washer and you're going to lay it in the center of that heavyweight stabilizer, and you're going to mark the lines. If you want to mark the circle, you can, but you want to mark the lines where the prongs are going to go through this piece right here. Now you're going to take your washer and you're going to set it right there in the center of that crosshatch right there. Lay the circle in that center, and now you're going to mark these lines right here. This is now where using a seam ripper works very easy for this. Starting at the bottom of that line that you just drew, poke your seam ripper through and just kind of create the smallest of slits. 2 or 3 threads, that's all you're going to be cutting. 2 or 3 threads through there. On your heavy duty stabilizer, do the same thing. Start at the bottom and just draw your seam ripper up just that little bit. Now you're going to take your male piece and on the right side, push it through those 2 seams, those 2 little cuts that you had just placed in there. Grab your heavyweight fusible, it goes on next. And then you're going to grab your washer. Now I see I probably need to trim this down just a little bit because we're going to be sewing across in a minute. So you don't want this to be too tall up. Then you're going to grab your washer, slide it on here, and then push your prongs out. And just kind of set that in there. So you got the first half of the washer done, of your magnet done. Do that for both of the lining pieces. So now you have both your strap onto your pocket piece and this piece right here. So now we're going to take this and place it right side down. So you got the right sides together onto your pocket piece. And you're going to match up your edges. You'll see that your center will match up. Put a couple clips in it, and you're going to stitch all the way across this top right here. And you're going to do it for both pieces. We're going to do a 1/4 inch stitch all the way across. So let's go ahead and get that done. Make sure everything's all lined up. 1/4 inch all the way across. Now your machine is going to want to kick this out right here because it's really close to that edge. So you might end up having to flip it over. If you found your machine just kind of wobbled a little bit, sort of like what this one did, just a little wobble. I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to make that straight where it kind of wobbled right there. All right, once you have it stitched all the way across, now we're going to press this. So I kind of finger press this back. We're going to give this a good press, and then we're going to do a top stitch all the way across. So you're going to do this to both pieces, kind of pushing this back a little bit, and then we're just going to press this down. It's cotton. It's a cotton strap, so you won't have to worry about anything melting right there. Now you're going to fold it back and just sort of line up your edges here. Everything all lined up. And we're going to give it another press. So I'm lining up all of my edges, and then we're going to press this across. And then we're going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch all the way across. I want to make sure everything is all lined up in where the box cutting is. Everything is all nice and lined up. All right, we're going to top stitch that all the way down. So I do raise my stitch count, and I'm just going to be doing like 1/8 of an inch all the way across. Now here's a trick that I found, because you're now even closer to that magnet right here. So I take my pressure needle and I slide it all the way over to the left, so that if you wanted to, you could put your zipper foot on, but you just need to get it. I have my needle slung all the way over to the left so that I can do my top stitch all the way across, and my foot's not going to be getting caught onto the magnet, the piece that's the metal piece that's under here. So that's what that was one little trick that I had found that kind of helped it. So I'm going to raise my stitch length up to like 3.5, and I'm just going to follow this down about 1/8 of an inch or so down. Making sure everything is still lined up. And by doing this, I'm not fighting that magnet right there. And that's what you're looking for. Just a cute little top stitch going all the way across. All right, once we have that done, you're going to do that for both of them. Now let's set this aside, because now we've got some prep work that we have to do onto our exterior pieces. All right, so grabbing your main exterior piece, we're going to be doing a couple of things. We're going to get the magnet set here into this one. It's going to be the female piece. It's going to be right here, the one that's got the magnet in it, the snap. But I have another little prep work. Now again, you would have marked your centers on this one. In the instructions, I talk about going down from the seam, but we're going to go ahead and put our marks onto this piece right here. This is the marks that you're going to need for when you do the, create the channel for the drawstring. And it's done on the exterior piece, not the lining. So you're going to put it onto this piece. So flipping your piece over and lining it up with one of this edge on one of the lines on your mat. You need to come down 1 3/4 inches on both sides and mark it. 1 3/4 inches down, and then a 1/2 inch between here and here. So 1 3/4 inches, and then a 1/2 inch between that one. So that's going to be our stitch line. You're going to do that on both of the pieces for your exterior. You will only be able to see one side, but go ahead and just mark that there. Now also, while you have it on your line on your mat, the straight line right here, you've got your center right here. From the top edge, measure 6.5 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.5. So on my mat, it's 13.5. So I need for you to draw a line pretty much where the center is, like I've got right here. So I draw a line right there. And you know, you're finding your center, folding it in half, finger pressing it, so now you know where your center is to draw your crosshatch. Now there's another way. This is marking the placement for your other piece of the snap. You could also take this piece, the one that you just did, and you can set it down and lining up all of the edges on top with the one that you've already got your male piece already in. And you could kind of give this a little bit of a press right there where it kind of marks it onto here. And there's my mark right there, but if I fold this back, it's the exact same position that I tell you in the instructions for just measuring it down. So just go 6.5 inches down, draw a line across, and then draw your center line. Then you're going to grab your, take your little washer, your placement washer, and you're going to center it on that little cross hatch, and then you're going to mark those two lines right there, just like I did earlier, just to show you where the placement is. And also do that on your little 1-inch piece. Now we're going to go ahead and get this set up. So we're going to draw, just like before, we're going to take our little seam ripper, starting at the bottom of it. I'm just going to cut a couple little threads, just 2 or 3 threads up, so that I can feed the prongs through. Flipping it over and getting your female piece, the larger piece that has the magnet in it. We're going to go ahead and from the front side push those prongs through. go ahead and cut it on your fusible here, or not fusible, but your heavyweight fleece or stabilizer, and pushing it down. Final piece is your washer on top, and then push your prongs out to the side. So you're going to do that for both pieces of the exterior for the drawstring pocket. Once you have that done, now you're going to take this piece that you had just finished, this was the pocket part, and you're going to set this down onto here. You can go ahead and put the snap in it, and you're going to maneuver it and lining up all of our edges. You'll see that all of your edges should just all line up, like I have right here, all lined up, lining everything up, because now we're going to do a stitch. It's going to hold everything in place. So you're going to line up all the sides, and you're going to line up the drawstring here and this part on the bottom. And we're going to just stitch it down all the way around about 1/8 of an inch. It's just going to stabilize it for when you go to put it all together. So we're just stabilizing it. So I'm going to go ahead and get this one stitched. And I'm literally just running right along the edges. You can do it from the front side, you can do it from the back. But we're just doing a quick stitch, and it doesn't even have to be a tight stitch. It's just holding all the layers down. Kind of keeping it all lined up as you go, right there on the edge. And I kind of like to check from the front side to make sure everything's being caught. Everything's looking good. I'm going to go ahead and start on this side. Because these stitches are not going to be seen at all. It's just holding everything in place. And it's going to come off right here. All right, now we're going to do that for both pieces. So now you've got the majority of your prep work done. Now it's just a matter of assembling all of it together. So now we're going to take these two pieces that you've done, all of the pocket, you've got your snaps on here, so now you're ready to go. You be sure to put your lines on here for your drawstring, because you'll be needing those later. We're going to take these two pieces and we're going to place them right sides together. And we're going to stitch across the bottom, just 1/4 inch across the bottom. And while we're doing that, go ahead and grab your lining pieces. And I got to find where my lining pieces went. Oh, here they are. So this is my lining. Here's my lining. Go ahead and take your two lining pieces and place them right sides together. So right sides together, and we're going to stitch this down too. But what we're going to do is on this piece right here, we got to leave an opening for turning. So you're going to stitch and leave a 3 to 4 inch opening here in the center. So I think I go about 1.5 inches back tack, leave my 4 inch opening, then another 1.5 inches on the other side. Just stitching to leave this open. Because we're doing both of these, just go ahead and get this one ready to stitch across, but leaving your opening. And then we're going to stitch this one all the way across. So let's go get these stitched up real quick. So again, I'm just lining up these edges. So it's nice to have those little center marks that you had done, because you can find that they line up. Everything's right in center. And we're doing 1/4 inch all the way across on this piece right here. Just on the bottom only, that's what we're working on. And then you're going to get this one sewed. Now we're going to press this open. So you're opening this up, and you're going to open up this seam, and we're going to press this open. Because we're going to top stitch on both sides of that seam. Flipping it over, giving it a press from the top. Now with the lining of the big drawstring part, same thing. I opened this up and I'm pressing this seam open, but I'm also pressing where I didn't sew it. So I'm pressing open where I did sew, and then I'm just following that seam fold all the way down. You'll find it's going to be so much easier when you are at the point of closing that seam up at the very end. So we got this pressed, we got this pressed. Now we're going to top stitch. I like to do a zigzag stitch right here in the center, and then I'm going to do a top stitch on both sides. And I'll show you on the example that I have over here what I had done on the bottoms. And it's your preference. There's just a lot of bulk that's going on right there. So I do a zigzag right there in the center, and then I do a stitch on both sides. So it's holding everything down for you. I've done it on, I think, on just pretty much all of them. I did the zigzag across the bottom, and then top stitch it on both sides. Just a lot of layers going on right there, so I found it just made it lay nice and flat. So let's get this stitched down. I'm actually doing the zigzag that does 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Just following it right down the center. And now we're going to just do our little stitch on both sides. I'm raising my stitch length up to around 3, 3.5. And we're just going to stitch right there on the edge, right there, right just outside that. And then the other side. Just like that. So that's what we're looking to get that stitch down. So it kind of flattened all of this bulk that you have going on back here. Now we're getting ready to start with our next phase. Get some of this out of our way. We are going to start putting everything together, and then we will be putting on, getting to do our drawstring section. All right, so laying this out in front of me, we're going to place, this is right side up. You want to bring your pocket pieces down, or you could take them and kind of slip them inside so they're not in the way. Which that's what I'm doing right here. I'm just sliding my little straps inside and then snapping it just to kind of keep everything out of the way, because our next step is we're going to lay this out where it's right side up, and we're going to take our lining of our drawstring bag now, and we're going to place it right sides together. We're going to stitch now here and here on each end. So we're just stitching down 1/4 of an inch on this side and 1/4 of an inch on this side. Super, super easy, right? So again, this is having that center mark on there just kind of helps in the lining up a process on everything. So I'm just going to put a clip there, and then I'm going to put a clip on the other side because we're stitching down the across the top on both sides. All right, so let's get this stitched up. Sheen back on 1/4 inch. Everything's all lined up, and we're just going to stitch all the way across. And flip it over, and let's get the other side done. There you go, easy peasy. All right, now here's the fun part. Y'all ready? Okay, so here we go. Once you have that done, you're going to, so we just stitched this down right here and here. Now you're going to go ahead and lift it up. Now I've got it turned this way. Now it's going to look more like the project that we're working on. Again, I'm going to show this part because this is hard to explain. So you've got it laid out where you stitch on both sides, on each end. So what you just stitched down was the top of the drawstring bag. I'm going to bring this up. Now we're going to sew down each side. Here's what we're going to do first. You're going to grab your pieces of your pocket from on each one, and I like to match up the pocket part right here. Match this up, and once I have these matched up, then I'm going to grab a good heavy clip, and I'm going to clip it first here. Going down to the bottom, put a clip here. Then we're going to clip this. I'm going to match up the seam here. And I don't look to nest those seams. I think I just push them together, or you could try to nest it, but you want to match up the seam here. This is the top of your drawstring bag right here. Clip that. And then you're going to clip all the way to the bottom. Match up these corners and edges down here. Now here's where we had drawn our lines earlier. So from here to here, now if I go from the seam here, so I've got it flipped, so I've got my lining of the drawstring bag here, and here is the exterior part. And we had drawn our lines right here, remember 1 3/4 and then a 1/2 inch from that. But if I line my stitch line up, it is 1 1/2 inches down and then another 1/2 inch. So you can do it from the stitch line or you can do it prior to the stitch line, but I have it lined up here. So that's important. So I'm going to put a red clip right here in between that. When we go to stitch this down all the way across, we are not stitching between these two lines. So you're going to stitch from the bottom. I like to start from the heavier side where the pocket is. I start here, 1/4 inch all the way down. When I get to here, I back tack and cut my threads. And then I pick it up back right here, stitch here, back tack. Do not stitch in this area at all. And then stitch the rest of the way all the way to the end. And then we're going to do that on the other side. So I'm putting a red clip right there because that's for me to know that is no sew right there. And while you're lining everything up, same thing on this side. First, I like to line up the top of my pocket first, make sure everything matches up there. I like to grab the heavier clips to hold that. A lot of layers going on right there. Matching up the bottom box part. Put a clip here. Matching up this seam. And then matching up the box bottom here on this end. Same thing here. I'm going to put my red clip right there at that spot. That is my no-sew. So I'm going to stitch down, not sew there, and then I'm going to stitch on this side, not sew there. All right, let's get to stitching. Quarter inch all the way down. Keeping everything lined up. Now if you want, when you get to the top of that pocket, you could do a back tack there just to give it a little bit more strength. And then we're coming up to our first place where we got to stop. We're going to stop right there at that line. Be very careful, don't go over it, and then back tack. Move that 1/2 inch up, drop your needle down, then drop your foot. And a couple stitches forward and back, and then stitch the rest of the way off. All right. So I flip it over because I like to start on this end here. And now we're going to do the same thing, go 1/4 inch all the way down. Sure to back tack. All right, so we're coming up to the first line. I'm going to get right there and do not go beyond it. One more stitch, and then back tack. Skip that 1/2 inch, drop your needle down at the 1/2 inch part. Couple stitches forward and back. And then the rest of the way off. Okay, next we're going to go ahead and box our bottoms. So to do that, you're going to open it up here where we have our pocket and everything's all nice and thick right through there. You're going to open this up and you're going to match up this side seam that you had just sewed to the center seam of the base that you had sewed earlier. So you're going to open this up and you're going to line up that center seam to that base line, to the base seam. So you're matching up the seams, and while you're matching up the seams, you're also matching up these edges that happen to form as you're lining all of that up. So we're going to start with the bottom piece, lining up all of those seams first. Put a clip in there, kind of hold it in place. Do this to the other side. Opening up the seam, lining up the side seam to the bottom seam. Looking for the center right there. Your edges will line up on the side and lining up the cut edges, raw edges right here. Now, one of the things I like to do as I'm lining all of this up, I'm kind of opening up that side seam a little bit so it lays a little bit flatter. So I'm lining up here, get the center seam, and then I'm opening up with my fingers right here the seam, the side seam that you had just sewed. Put a clip right there to hold it all in place. Make sure I did it here. Nope, didn't do it here. So I'm going to open up that piece again. It's just going to be a little bit smoother when you go to sew it. It's going to be a little flatter for you. Pushing everything down nice and flat, smoothing that out. So let's get these two done, and then we'll close these up first. Close those up next. I'm going to stitch across 1/4 inch all the way across. There we go. Try and keep everything nice and flat as we stitch across. And be sure to back tack. All right, other side. Don't be afraid to manhandle it a little bit to get everything to position where you want it. All right, now we're going to go ahead and do the exact same boxing onto the lining piece that we have up on the other end. So just like we did before, you're going to line up the center seam to the side to the center seam onto the bottom. And if you want to open that, you can also open that up. Not as much bulk going on right there. But I like to put a clip right there in the center because it kind of holds it. And do it for the other side, and then we'll stitch that down. Got a little moistening of the fingers so you can slide everything through, right? Lining up the two seams, side seam to the bottom seam. And put a clip there when you have everything all lined up the way you want. And just like we did before, we're going to stitch that closed with 1/4 inch all the way across. And then our other side. All right, we got all of that sewing done. We just got a little bit more to do. So I'm going to grab my turning tool because you're going to need a turning tool for this to kind of push everything out. So finding the opening of our bag right here, the one I need to make about 3 to 4 inches, I'm going to reach in and you're going to just go ahead and grab your bag and you're going to turn it right side out. We're going to push it all the way through that opening right there. Unsnap, I'm going to pull out my handles. Reach in, you can push everything out with your fingers. You can grab your turning tool, push everything out, smoothing out all those seams that you just sewed. I'm just going to push everything out this way. So our bag is pretty much making good shape. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and close up this opening. Because you had taken the time to press that seam open when you sewed the lining of your bag together, it just kind of just folds right into place. So let's go ahead and stitch that all the way across. And you can hand stitch it, or you can just hit it with your sewing machine. I'm just going to sew like 1/8 of an inch along that little edge right there. Once I battle getting it back together, here we go. Here we go. Just staying right there on the edge. All right, now we're going to take this, we're going to go to the iron. We're going to push our lining into the bag, because now we're going to press this seam up here on top. Kind of rolling it back, matching up the seams, and we're going to give this a good press. Pushing everything out nice and even. So I got kind of moisten my fingers with this one just to roll it back. We're going to press this, and then we got just literally 3 more stitches to do. See a little thread here, we'll get that removed. We're going to do a top stitch, and then we're going to create our stitching for our little channel for our drawstring. Get some of these threads out of my way. So I'm just lining this up, and I like to, I think, press from the inside. Found it's just a little bit easier. Now when I get to the side seams, I'm very careful to make sure everything is laying nice and flat on the side seams right here, because if you look right here on the exterior piece, about 1 inch or so down, 1.5 inches or so down, you're going to find your little opening right here where I can slide my little tool in there. That's where we didn't stitch. So we're going to do our top stitch, and then we're going to do a stitch going around here. So I think that's like 1.5 inches or so, and then you're going to do the second stitch right here, and I'm going to show you how to get that lined up on your machine. So I want that area to be nice and flat, because we don't want, when we go to thread our our cord in there, we don't want it to get hung up on there. So right now we're just making we're creasing the top. We're going to top stitch that 1/8 of an inch all the way around, and then we're going to sew in our channel for our drawstring. You are so close to being done, you just don't even know it. All right, making sure that that side area is nice and flat. All right, we're going 1/8 of an inch all the way around. Got lots of little threads here to remove. And then we will do the channel. All right. So I like to start at the seam, just to do my little top stitch going around. I'm going to drop my foot down, and I'm going to pull up my thread for this. Because on this part, I'm stitching my top stitch from the inside. But when we do our channel, you're doing it from the outside. That again, let's drop it down right there. Drop my thread, pull it back up. And we're going to do just a gentle top stitch all the way around. Raising my stitch length up to like 3.5. And again, I'm trying to stay about 1/8 of an inch from the top. And coming up to the other side. All right, now we're going to create our channel, our first channel. So I do this from the top side. So I'm looking for the area right here. So this is where I know my opening is. So my first stitch is going to be right here, starting at the seam, at the opening, at the very beginning for the top one. So I'm kind of going to mark that with a pencil because I want to be able to see where that's where I'm going to be dropping my needle down for that right there. I'm going to do this for both sides. Get these threads out of the way. So I'm going to start, we're going to do the top part of the channel first, and then the second one is like a 1/2 inch down. So looking at your bag here, looking at where it starts, it's right here. So I'm going to put just a little mark as a guide for me. So you might want to use something that easily comes off. And I'm going to do it on the other side. So that way I see as I'm sewing all the way around that everything is lining up. But I'm going to follow the markings on my machine as I'm stitching that down. So I'm just putting a little dot right there for me as a guide. It's just a guide for me. Now, I'm going to set my piece underneath here, but here's where I take my foot, and I'm not going to have it where it automatically lifts up, foot up, needle down. I want my foot to stay down when I'm stitching this down. So what I'm doing is I'm seeing my little mark, and I'm going to drop my needle right there in that mark. I haven't even dropped my foot yet, just the needle's been dropped down. Now I'm going to go ahead and drop my foot. And now I'm looking at the measurement on the side plate that I have right here. And I am right almost at the 1.5 inch mark. It's just shy of it. Looks like it's like a 1/16 of an inch shy of that. So I'm going to try, when I'm going all the way around, I'm going to stay at that pretty much that same distance as I'm stitching. So I got my needle down, I'm grabbing my thread, and I'm going to go ahead and bring my needle up and keeping my foot down. I'm going to pull up my thread so I don't have that little knot on the back side. Drop my needle down again. Now, I'm not paying, when I'm doing this part right here, I am not paying attention to my needle. I am watching, keeping this area flat as I go right here. And I am watching the edge, the top edge of my bag right here and following it along the lines that are on my plate that I have right here. Now you probably could get one of those metal bars and have it coming across. You know, those seam guides. But I'm following the lines on my mat to make on my machine to see where it goes. So I have a 40 right here that's lining right up against that 40. So I kind of take this a little slow as I'm going through here. So I'm going to do a couple stitches forward. And again, I do not have it where the foot comes up. I want my foot to stay down the whole time when I'm stitching here. So I'm going to take a couple stitches forward, a couple stitches back. Got my stitch length raised to, oh, here's another thing. I should have put my needle in the middle, but right now I've already got it signed up for where this is at. I have it where I am raising my stitch length up to 3. I don't want it to be a real tight stitch, so I've got it at 3 and I'm lining up here. Now, I didn't move my needle, my foot to the middle, or my needle to the middle, so right now it's still on my 1/4 inch setting. But I would recommend going ahead and putting your needle in the middle of your foot so it's not here on the 1/4 inch, and then it probably would have been right there at that 1.5 inches. So now I've got where I want it to be, dropping my foot back down, and now I'm just going to stitch all the way around. I don't want my foot to come up, so I just got that setting set on there, and I don't rush through this part. I don't want it to really wobbly. I don't want it to be like a wobbly stitch. So I'm paying attention to here. I'm looking not here, I'm looking here on this edge right here as I'm sewing. So I'm kind of holding it flat. And the next thing is I'm also making sure that nothing is getting up underneath there as I'm doing this in like little segments, like 2 or 3 inch segments as I go. And then I pull it out, rotate it, so I don't inadvertently sew the other side into here. We're just doing our little segments, pulling it through, watching this edge over here. Now I'm coming up onto the other side, and it looks like it's going to line up perfectly on that little mark that I just put, which is the beginning part of the opening for the drawstring. So I'm just going to sew right through that, just keep going, and keeping it nice and straight, doing my little segments at a time, 2 or 3 inches I guess at a time. Feeling that, making sure nothing else is getting up underneath there. That's kind of what's important. Keeping this flat between the edge and your foot. And I'm almost back to where we started, right here. And it's lining up perfectly right where I began. So I'm going to get there and do a back tack and then cut my threads. Go ahead and pull those strings up that you had pulled up earlier and trim these from the back side. Now we are going to do our second part of our channel. And knowing that it is pretty much a 1/2 inch between, I like to take my needle and I'm bringing it all the way to the left, just like I did before when we were sewing, can't remember what we were sewing. I slid my needle all the way to the left. Because if I have my needle all the way to the left and I drop my foot down here, it is that perfect 1/2 inch that I'm sewing in between. So now the edge of my foot is going to be riding along the stitch that I had just done. So I'm going to drop my foot, drop my needle, and pull up my threads just like I did earlier. Each machine is going to be different, so find out what your machine is doing, but I'm just needing to stitch a 1/2 inch between those two, between So I'm creating that 1/2 inch channel for our drawstring to go through there. So once I get that done, I'm going to do a couple stitches forward, stitches back, and now we're just going to sew all the way around, creating our channel. I'll bring my stitch length up. Again, just doing it in bites so you don't inadvertently sew something you don't want to sew. I'm getting to the other side. It looks like I'm going to have a perfect opening right there. Keeping everything out of the way, making sure it's laying nice and flat underneath. Almost to the other side. And there we are, and back tack. And we're going to clip our threads. So that is all your sewing. You literally have all of your sewing done for your little bag right here. So you got a lot of little threads you might need to trim away. But now the last thing is just putting your string, putting your cord through there to create the drawstring. So to do it, you're going to put one on one side. You're going to thread it through one side, and then you're going to thread it through the other. So with your cord, it should be 1.5 yards for this size bag. I'm going to fold it in half. And we're just going to go ahead and clip this. Clip it right in half. Now if you're going to do the bobby pin, you're literally just going to kind of pin it right here at the very end. And then you're going to feed it through. If you're going to use the bobkin, I find that the bobkin did not work as well for me, and I don't know if it was because of this little piece got right here, but we're going to try it again with the bobkin because it should fit through that channel. So I've got it where it's grabbed my piece, pushed this all the way down to the end. So when you go to do this, when you go to thread this through, you're going to look for where the seam, in the direction that the seam is going, so that it's kind of going in this direction. So I'm going to thread my bobkin through here, and we're just going to go all the way around. Or you can, so you get, sometimes you get a little hung up right here. Now you know the opening is there, you just got to get through the stitch, the seam. So you got to kind of wiggle it a little bit, and then it'll go all the way through. So we're getting all the way around. Gets a little hung up when you get to the other side, but you got to figure out where that opening is in the fabrics there. Once you get through there, you got to go beyond it, and then you got to go backwards to get to the other, to get it back through. So you kind of wiggle it a little bit and hope you don't push your thing off. So I'm trying to find it again just to get it back through there. I think this is where I got hung up a little bit. It was easier to use my bobby pin, or safety pin, to get it back through at that point. So hold on a minute, we're going to get it through here. Just got to find it to get it to back in. It's so close, it's right there. I find if I had something to kind of open it up a little bit, to kind of get it to feel that spark. So I'm grabbing this little screwdriver, and then I'm backing it into the screwdriver. And I think that's how I was able to get it before. And there it is. It felt it, so I was able to get it through that way. All right, so there we pulling it through. We got one done. I'm going to line up my ends. I'm going to go ahead and get this threaded through our little this is our little wooden bead. You're just going to thread these through. You're going to do a double knot on the end. One and then two. Got to make a big enough knot so that it doesn't go through the holes of your wooden bead. Got one side, now let's get the other side done. This one we're going to do with our safety pin. So I've just got it threaded onto here. Now you're going to go to the other side that you had started, the other side of what you had done, and we're going to go in through that opening. So find the direction that it's going, and then just feed it through. I find that the pin, the safety pin, was a little bit easier where you have to back it back through. Almost there. Now you got to go beyond where you had started, and then you back it in. So I'm beyond the opening. Then you got to go back in, backwards in, and there's the pin. Carefully wiggle it through. Sometimes you catch the other thread, but this one I didn't. Grab your little wooden bead, feed these through, and do your little knot towards the bottom. And a double knot I find is the right size. Just slipping it through twice. However you want to do it. Nice and tight. Bead here. What do you know? Your bag is done. How cute is that? There it is. Your Snappy Drawstring Bingo Bag Bucket Bag. How about that? Snappy Drawstring Bag. My grandma would call it a bingo bag, just like Margot. It would be her bingo bag. Or it is a bucket bag, but it is absolutely adorable. So, it's not that hard to do. It's just a lot of little steps that you got to do before you actually go put it all together. But it is fun. It's just a fun project. So here it is in that colorway. Again, I'll pull out the other ones. Here it is with more of the yellow mustard color on top. And then we got the one with the cardinals. And I'm going to show you a couple others. Here's the very first prototype that I had made with some fall fabrics. And this one actually has the stabilizer that I did some SF101 on the top. And I thought it was just a little too stiff for that. And I didn't have the cotton webbing to begin with, so I just had the nylon. But it's just cute. And then here is one that I did with some Laurel Birch. This is her mermaid line that I had. And I did the strap a little bit different. Instead of sewing it in between, I just attached it to the outside. Used the regular the plastic snaps, the cam snaps on this one. Just an adorable bag. And then just don't you forget, we do have the big one. So those of you who were part of the Sew and Show subscription box and you got this one, this will be available soon for you to be able to purchase. This is the large snappy bag. So I'm going to have all that ready for you soon. So I hope you enjoyed this project. This one was a lot of fun. I had to get it all done for you. So you should can't wait to see your photos. Be sure to post them into the Martelli Quilters group. I think there's also a hashtag, Martelli Makers. Just post your photos and you will be a part of the drawing that we're going to have. Since this is our December, it'll be in January. Be sure to post your photos so that everybody who posts the photos of the projects that they have made, put your name in for our drawings for some really cool gifts. So again, this was the December box. I hope you enjoyed it. And everybody have a very Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. You have a great day. Bye-bye, everybody.